Hello and welcome back to Pedagogy Pods. Today we are going to talk about something. I think this was one of the topics that was given to me as a trainer when I did my first workshop, and that was on classroom management. Yes, a very simple yet very important topic because what happens is classroom management is like, yeah, I have a class, I have students, I have a room, and I know how to manage
Yeah,
it.
we takes it sometimes very casually.
We take it
Oh, it
just,
will happen when
yeah,
we'll do, but it's a big thing. It's a
yeah,
huge thing.
yeah. And you know what? I think there are certain research based strategies that could really be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
In our career, we have used Dr. Robert Marzano's approaches, which have worked very well for us. And I think it goes a long way if you have a way of, managing your classroom. So today we are here to talk about Dr. Marzano's approaches for classroom management, and we're going to keep it short, crisp. So we picked up three major, points from his research. First thing is establishing clear rules, guidelines, and procedures. Number two is, your balanced way of having a discipline in the class. And number three, like you were saying,
And third one is Meenakshi, socio-emotional connect with students,
yeah,
which is
that is so
extremely
true.
important in that. So
Absolutely.
let us talk about all these three aspects of
Yeah.
the classroom management.
Yeah, let's start with the first one. The first one is very simple, which is basically setting your, rules, procedures, guidelines for students to follow. And you'll say, yeah, of course, we do that in our class. We always have these, my class rules that are going to be there. But the problem comes when they're not practiced as they were planned.
Consistency is the key.
Exactly.
Consistency is very important, and plus I think repetition of them. And another thing we were talking about, Meenakshi, is students involvement in setting those
Yeah,
procedures and rules.
true.
Because if we set something and ask somebody to follow it, they will not be that
Yeah, it is
involved.
imposed. It's
Imposed
not
kind of.
mine. It's
Huh.
yours, and I'm
Hmm,
going
hmm,
to follow what you're
hmm,
saying,
hmm,
right?
hmm.
So, Meenakshi, we used to do something very similar in our class. What we did was that, we used to give our students a scenario to say, when I walked in this morning, there was a lot of noise in the class and things were here and there. And then, the bell rang and we had to go for the assembly, and there was a mayhem for making a line. So, is there a way in which we can come up with some which way in which we know what are we supposed to do? Like, do this first, do next, let's do that, and we allowed our students to brainstorm. Let them come up with a solution. We must treat these students as well with utmost respect, and we must, place that responsibility upon them to be able to take decision to say, I think this is what can be done. So
Hmm.
what students came up was that we'll finish our work before we get up, then we will tidy our tables, tuck in our chairs, make sure that everything is clean in the classroom, and the first one to be in the line will make sure that everyone walks in quietly into the line, and will keep reminding to hurry up and come and join the line. And the last three in the line will make sure that the class is tidy. If it isn't, they'll call out for the child who had not done that particular job. And also, their job was they had a checklist. Is all of this happening? Now, that is where your consistency comes in. It's not a one day play or a one day game,
It's
but to
everyday
help
process.
students self regulate, these habits go in a long way. So, what they did was they used to, the last three students in the line will always be responsible for turning off the lights, for making sure the room is
That's a
tidy.
huge problem, actually.
Exactly.
This looks
And
small, but this is a huge problem.
yeah, and cleaning
Otherwise,
the
people
board
leave the
also.
fans open, lights open,
Yeah.
and that
And how many times can you come back and
come
check?
back and check.
And one of them used to clean the board. And the first two students made sure that when they move out, they're moving out on the right side or left side, whichever way your school, appreciates. We had a right side policy when you're going out and left side when you come back. So that's the rule that followed. And it's such a simple thing.
Mhm.
And I was with junior classes. Please remember, I was dealing with grade threes. So I placed the responsibilities on their shoulders, and they pretty much did a very good job. Of course, with us being monitoring everything, and maintaining consistency that it does happen, and that if there are situations that happen, we discuss.
Hmm.
We come back to the room as a group to say, today this is what happened. This one kicked me in the corridor, that one was not in the line. Is it all right to not be in the line? Is it all right to kick somebody? Is it all right to wait and then jump 3 stairs and then take the next step? What do you do if you get left behind? You want to tie your shoelace. All of those were procedures that were discussed. Commonly occurring problems in the classroom. These problems are the ones that led to disruption. So we were discussing everything that was happening with our students.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the classroom management while you are teaching the lesson.
Yeah.
When you're teaching the lesson, there should be another this thing guidelines,
Yeah.
and very simple, but very effective. As you do always in the workshops, also with elders, also not with students
Yeah.
only, but with elders also. If you just give them a hint that when you are speaking at a louder voice, I will do this, and you will also simultaneously will do this, and just keep looking at them, and after some time they will get used to this practice, they will start doing it themselves. And there comes the beauty of classroom management, that you have set a procedure. Again, we are talking
Yeah,
about the
you're
procedure.
absolutely right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And while students are presenting to each other, we've seen it very often, the rest of them will not listen to them.
Listen, yes.
Yeah. So the same procedure is what these students also had to follow. They will just keep quiet and stand there. If they feel that the teachers, looking for at other students or guiding other students while this child is speaking, for whatever reason, the child has to pause. They will pause and wait for attention, and it's all right to wait for attention.
Attention, yes.
Yeah, we
Yes.
don't have to really blurt out everything there and then, right?
Looks simple, but goes very far.
Yeah, yeah,
And students should be, I think they should be given that motivation also.
yeah.
It is very important for anyone to hear the appreciation. If
Truly.
somebody is following the rules consistently and showing something very extraordinary discipline in the class, then teachers should acknowledge them. And that for example, if some student is Ria, then you should tell the child that, Ria, you're doing very well. You have, for the full month I am watching you, and you have switched off the fans regularly, consistently you're doing. And that makes a difference for a child, and others also will follow that. I think that is also a very
Yeah, and
important point.
whether it is a group appreciation,
Hmm.
individual
Huh.
appreciation, or whole class
Whole
appreciation,
class appreciation, yeah.
pause to say some good words, kind words,
Hmm.
pause to acknowledge what they are doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
most important. They love acknowledgement. Who doesn't like acknowledgement, right?
And if you want to give some feedback also, please start with something positive,
Yeah.
because you can find positive in everything. Students are doing efforts. Maybe they are not able to reach to the 100% level, but they have reached to 40%. So start with appreciating that 40% which they are doing every day.
On that note, I would want to add about the balanced approach towards discipline. You know, we're always aiming for 100% discipline. We should always have a quiet class. When you're walking in a line, walk properly in a line only.
Hmm.
The line should not move. There's so many facets that we expect to be 100%. But like Minakshi said, it's all right if it's not 100% all the time. In fact, the busiest and the noisiest of the classrooms are the most productive classrooms, is what they say.
Of course,
Right?
yeah, that is very
Yeah,
much
that
right.
is very
Sometimes
true.
the even your class demands that kind of talks and debates happening in the classroom. So it's the class. What is its demand?
All of that, but in a very balanced approach.
Balanced approach, yeah,
Having a
definitely.
balanced approach is very important towards discipline, because discipline at a certain level has to pause when you have to prioritize somebody's voice. Look,
Yes.
when, like, let's say there's a debate happening in the class, or even if you've asked a question, student want to answer, there will be about 10 hands raised.
Mm.
What about the 30 that have not been raised, assuming that there are 40 students in a class? So it's our job to make sure that these 10 always raise their hand to answer. And we need to find that balanced approach of saying, I think you guys are doing a great job. If you can lend your answer to somebody and you can share and build your answer with another child and share with me, that'll be fantastic. So you're placing your confidence in another child, you're encouraging another child, you're maintaining that discipline of not getting ma'ams all the time in
And
the
this is
class.
encouraging positive
It
relationship
is. It
amongst
is
students.
brewing positive
Yes, of course, they're
relationships.
sharing,
It's
they're caring,
collaborating.
they're
Yes,
caring, they're sharing, they're
exactly.
collaborating.
You know what happens? Collaboration on that piece happens mostly online, or while you're doing a project. Why do we have to wait? In our classrooms, every day we have opportunities where we can bring in collaboration. So probably this sharing your piece of information with your immediate group of 2 or 3 students,
Hmm.
and then you building each other's knowledge could be something that you could try. And with a balanced approach towards discipline, they know there are boundaries, but they're not, and there are guidelines, but they're not like set in stone that you can't break.
Hmm.
You can have a noise in my class, but the noisometer should tell me that it's not going
Actually.
there, and that we are able to maintain a healthy noise in the class. Productive noises are something that we highly encourage you to please try in your class. It's always good.
Hmm. Students should be able to put their points across.
Yeah.
Quieter the classroom, maybe it's the demand sometimes when you're teaching something and students should listen to something, then it can be quieter. And
Absolutely.
otherwise, they are open to share their points, share their discussions. So it's
And learning doesn't, we don't have to make it happen. It should happen to them.
to them, yes,
And
of
when it
course.
happens to them, it'll
Mm.
only happen if they're engaged and involved. And therefore, a balanced discipline approach is something that we would say we take away from Dr. Marzano's research.
Another very important point, teachers, is which I think must be shared on this platform, is that when you are well prepared for a lesson, then the classroom management is
I know what you're saying, and that
easier.
is so
It's
true.
that is true because seating arrangement, for example, if I am doing a work which demands some kind of group discussion or some kind of maybe they are sitting in a this
U
kind of
U
U
shape
shape.
or a, yeah,
They need to
semicircle.
look the board also and they need to discuss also, but I should be first clear what kind of chapter I'm taking today to the classroom, what kind of uh,
Learning environment are
learning
you looking
environment
at?
I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So first I should be aware of, then I will be able to convey A, B, C, this thing to students and they will work accordingly. If I go a little unprepared, not much, little unprepared also, I have seen this
There is
happening
scope
in my
for
class.
yeah,
I
disruption in
have seen
class.
myself in
Yeah,
happening in my
yeah.
classroom that whenever I went like a little bit of unprepared, that A4 sheets are required or bigger sheets are required, or they should work in their copies or I will provide them the sheets. They need their colors or I am providing them the colors. They can share or they can't share. They need to write on one sheet individually in a group or they need to write on a as a group on one sheet. These instructions first should be in your planner.
You're so right. Like I
That
said,
makes a whole lot of
procedures
difference. Yes.
and rules and other things don't just apply on students, they apply on us as
Hmm,
well.
hmm,
Preparedness and pre preparing for your lesson each day is extremely important. And that's why I think we always used to talk about this. Come in 10 minutes early to the school if you have to,
hmm,
but make sure that what you're wanting in the class, there is no scope for, or very little scope for, zero attention, because that's where disruption starts happening. Yeah.
hmm. Yeah, very true.
Last but not the least, I think we are going to talk about the socio emotional part of classroom management. A personal connect is something that goes a long way. A
Beautiful.
feeling of belongingness to the room is something that goes a long way. There has to be items. I used to have this book corner where we used to ask students to not just bring their books, but bring in a soft toy or anything, any artifact or anything that you feel could lend to that corner, not just beautifying but enriching that corner. Students used to bring things from home and they had a sense of belongingness to that room.
Hmm. Yeah, Meenakshi, well said. Because it's very important to have that kind of connection to the classroom. And if they have made their own posters, if they know that if they have finished the work, they can go to that same corner where the books are kept, they can read the book. So, if they're clear about what they need to do after some class or after finishing of the work, they will be very, very this thing. Apne aap, the discipline will come in the
Correct.
classroom. You
Absolutely.
need not to enforce that discipline to them
Yeah.
itself, this thing.
Yeah. We did this fun thing. I just recall just right now. We did this fun thing. So there has to be a sense of belongingness, like I said. So in our room, we had this little window on the other side of the room, right? And when they had to sit in the book corner, the sun was always directly out there in that corner, and children would avoid sitting over there. So we said, okay, let's put a curtain there. Now, who will get the curtain? So we took turns,
Oh,
and we made weeks after, or we actually we had a fortnightly change. So this drives multiple messages. How often should you be taking off the curtain? You need cleaning, you need change, all of that. And it just became a kind of a procedure. They knew that next child has to bring in a curtain. Everybody brought in a curtain, and we used to actually have a rotation. So each week, each fortnight, a new curtain was there, and another child would have a sense of belongingness to that room. It's such a simple strategy, but
simple but so
it's so
effective.
effective.
To belongingness is so important. Ki this is my classroom. I
Yeah,
have to manage this.
yeah.
That is
You-
important. If that is not mine, I will not bother about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in human nature that if it is mine, I will do it. If it is not mine, then I'll not do it. So
Yeah.
it's so beautiful and never heard of it. This is something unique I have
Well,
with.
that's why we sit on this couch to
Yeah.
share with you some stories from our classroom. And I hope
Mm.
today's talk was beneficial for you. And I'll share the link for Dr. Marzano's approach if you've not heard of it. Please go ahead and read it. And if you feel that you need a workshop in your school or for a set of teachers, do let us know. We'll be happy to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, and we'll
Thank
see
you
you
so
next time.
much.
Bye bye.
Bye.